This is a dangerous gospel. It can make us uncomfortable. Around this time of year, we start thinking about the holidays that are coming. Halloween this week, Thanksgiving soon after, and Christmas. And you know that Christmas shopping has already started in some of the places. But before we really get into that busy schedule, the liturgy encourages us to ask ourselves, are we any better now than we were before? It's not a political question. It's a spiritual one. Are we any better now this year than we were before? Today's gospel can help us answer that question. In Mark's gospel, this is a turning point story. Up to now, Mark has told various stories. Jesus had various teachings about himself and what it takes to be his disciple. Remember someone recently about welcoming the kingdom like a little child, about the rich young man, about the camel in the eye of the needle, and last week about who is the greatest, one who is the servant. And we also heard about Jesus, how he would suffer and die and rise again. But the apostles were blind to that. They just didn't get it. So today, Mark tells the story of someone who wanted to see, who did get it, and wanted to follow Jesus. In fact, Mark shows this fellow Bartimaeus is a real character. There were other beggars that begged from Jesus, but Bartimaeus called him Son of David. That's a title for the Messiah. He really got Jesus' attention. Son of David. That meant that already Bartimaeus was seeing more clearly than some of the apostles. We could even say he had a blind faith. And when people tried to stifle him, he kept shouting all the louder. That's when he got Jesus' attention and Jesus invited him. But when he did you notice what Bartimaeus did? He threw aside his cloak. This was the cloak he used not just for warmth, but this was the cloak he spread out and kept the things that he begged for and received. He threw the cloak aside and whatever he had in that cloak and ran to Jesus to be healed. When he was cured, and you can imagine what it must have been to receive his sight, his joy was complete. And without even being asked by Jesus, it says, he followed him on the way. He became a disciple. And the very fact that Mark unusually here gives us the name of Bartimaeus and the name of his father probably indicates that he became a very famous and well-known disciple. And that's what makes this gospel dangerous. I mean, if when we asked ourselves, are we any better now than we were before? And we realize that we've had some blind spots in our life. Is this story a challenge to us too? I mean, if we want to see better, what if when we see some challenging things in our lives? We see some changes we might have to make, as Bartimaeus did. Some time ago, the LA Times told a story about the students of Chaminade Middle School in Chatsworth, whose campus is acres of rolling, lush green. They adopted St. Turibius Grade School in downtown LA, whose campus is a broken up asphalt parking lot. After some of the Chaminade students visited St. Turibius to read to the mostly Spanish-speaking youngsters, they decided to invite 300 of them from St. Turibius to visit their Chaminade school. When the buses rolled up to Chatsworth, the St. Turibius kids could hardly believe all this green grass, or the T-shirts that had been made for them, or all the hot dogs and popcorn and the love that were offered to them that day. There were games, laughter, running on grass, making new friends. And when the principal of St. Turibius, Franciscan Sister Jean Marie, whom I know, got up to thank the Chaminade students at the end of the day, she broke down in tears. She couldn't say a word. But it was really the Chaminade students whose eyes were open. Their principal said, "Our kids got a real appreciation of how lucky they are to have so much when other kids just like them have so little." It was like some of us adults who visit Haiti. A while ago, I was in Portland for a meeting, and I heard about a couple who were asked to be part of an adult education program. They were reluctant at first, but when they got into it, they really got into it. And after some weeks, they asked the coordinator of the program to come over for dinner. At the meal, they told her that they were going to sell their house. After learning so much more about the gospel, they said, and looking at our lives, we just can't live here anymore in this big house. It just isn't right. Their eyes were open. They saw something as if for the first time. It was hard to recognize or to admit, but like Bartimaeus, when they got sight of the Lord, when they could see, they had to follow. A story like that scares some people. What if they learn, or you learn more about yourselves, more about the demands of our faith than you want to know? What if you see things differently that you didn't expect to see? Then what? Then I think that you can hear another part of today's story. When Jesus called Bart with a personal summons, the people said, "Take courage. Jesus is calling you." That's encouraging to know if this gospel is scary or makes us uncomfortable. For maybe we will begin to see things which really were right there all of the time. And like Bartimaeus then, we can throw away that cloak that we no longer need.